And now, Podtendo presents Final Fantasy IX. In this retrospective, we're going to be doing a deep dive into characters, some of the thematical elements, and just what makes this game so fantastical. Please enjoy.
Hey guys, welcome to Podtendo's Final Fantasy IX Retrospective. As we journey through this last great adventure on the PlayStation 1, we are going to discuss the pop cultural landscape that this game was released in, talk about the story, the misadventures found on Disc 1, and finally, we are going to discuss two of the worst characters in the game. Wow, what a selling feature. You really want to listen to the rest of this podcast now, don't you, huh? Yeah? The worst characters in this one.
Yeah,
Cool.
way to start. Way to kick off. Hey, we're playing Final Fantasy IX.
Ooh, baby. I'm your co-host, Mick. I'm joined by...
Tyson.
Cool. And, Final Fantasy IX. So as part of our retrospective for the year, we've already looked at the Wind Waker from the first part of the year. So the second half from kind of, I guess, June to probably September, we'll be kind of tearing apart this bad boy and giving it a longer treatment. I don't know if it's a better treatment. A longer, more in-depth look at fine title. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Fine title indeed.
Awesome. Great. So with that, it's exciting. Do you think this one we haven't played the whole game. We haven't done the show yet. This is like the opening minutes of this journey. Is this game better than Final Fantasy VIII?
Oh, don't get me started. Yes, okay. Absolutely. Yeah. This is a great game. Actually, I really don't mind some of the criticism of this game. I kind of don't mind.
Okay.
So yeah, but I'm enjoying my time so far.
What are the criticisms that you've heard from?
I don't know. Maybe I've heard kind of, if you want to say the combat system's not the greatest, it's like, or whatever. It's like, it's not like the most super memorable or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I like it. I have fun with it. I can't think of any mainstream criticisms of this title.
Yeah, I think there was something. It was just a bit backdated. What didn't feel like it was pushing the medium. It was just kind of a culmination of every 2D, or not, but yeah, kind of two game up to it. So the first Final Fantasy 8, or the first 8, Final Fantasies, kind of did almost feel like they culminated, they swell, and this is kind of the end product. So it's kind of the best of the whole series, and one kind of fun, digestible throwback adventure. It's kind of fun. It's good times. So yeah, I agree. It's probably going to be better than Final Fantasy 8. Looking forward to it. And the loading times are a little questionable. Playing the remastered version with increased speed, sometimes I get into a random battle, screen goes black, screen loads in, my characters are there, and I'm like, man, this is taking a long time on like...
Yeah, I don't understand that for sure. The loading screens, and you're like, why is this game struggling?
Yeah.
What? Like, maybe it's just an architecture thing? I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. There's just, a little something that doesn't feel great. I'm glad that we have remastered versions of this game. We have creature comforts, right, so we can get around to that. And maybe we'll dive more into that next episode when we look at the development details. Again, we're going to kind of hit just kind of our Wayback Machine, get right into the story. I don't have any first memories, so I guess we just don't talk about that. Maybe that's I guess we need something for like episodes 3 or 4. Okay, you know what? No, I'm going to believe that I have a plan. Just, again, trust the notes. So this game, Final Fantasy IX, was developed by Square, sold 5.86 million copies, was released July 7th, 2000. How Long to Beat has this game at 38.5 hours. On eBay, you can get a copy of this, PlayStation disc, for $66. And if you go onto your eShop on your PlayStation, definitely a PlayStation, it'll be $28. Cool. Now, where to play? You can play this on the original PS1 and Android and iOS, a Windows, a PS4, a Nintendo Switch, or an Xbox One.
Yeah. Super available. I'm assuming that's kind of why the eBay price is only $66. But also selling 5.8 million means it was everywhere. I feel like everybody had this game, to be honest.
Was it this game or Final Fantasy VIII? I think I was buying a PS1 from someone, and they were like, oh yeah, I had a copy of Final Fantasy IX, but one of the discs was missing, so I just threw it away. Excuse me? I was like, that was 75% and you threw it. Oh, that was an unhappy online buy that day. I was like, oh boy, you're gonna get thumbs down on Facebook Marketplace after this one. A disc, because you missed a disc. The disc was in
Well,
the
it's also-
PlayStation. No, I'm just kidding. 'Cause now I have one disc.
Probably.
Now I have one disc of Final Fantasy IX, so it's pretty exciting. So if anyone has a save file that I can load up disc 2 and play through it, that'd be...
Oh, I was gonna say it depends on what disc is missing. Because if it's disc 1, you're like, well, I'm screwed. This is garbage.
Yeah. Well,
I see that mentality. But if it's like disc 4, you're like, oh, it's fine.
I could play this game for like 30 hours and then just watch an 8 hours of Let's Play and be perfect.
Yeah.
No, it'd be terrible.
In the world of YouTube, it's fine.
The team would be different. You'd be like, oh no.
You just end up having to watch whatever YouTuber has the same team as you.
Yeah.
Just that's the mission. I'm sure there's enough of them where you're just gonna be like, who beats the final boss using my preferred set?
If I had a lot of free time, was a free time millionaire, YouTube, watch a bunch of Let's Plays, see who has which team mirrors mine. But before I do that, I don't have that, guys. But I do have a time machine, so I could travel back to when I had free time, but I don't use it for that. I just use it to peer into a time capsule of what was going on in the world of pop culture. And that's where we head now, to our Podtendo's patented Wayback Machine, where we jump in it, goes beep beep, and we travel back to June 7th, 2000. Take a peek into the pop cultural landscape and say, do we want to live there? So we start out by looking at The Simpsons. We have season 11, episode 22, Behind the Laughter. The real story of The Simpsons is told.
Nice. I've always had a soft spot for this episode. I really like it. I don't know why.
It's a clever, well done parody, right? Like they know the parody, they tell the story, it's their flair. Yeah, no, excellent, well done story. Other shows you could be watching on TV this year are Curb Your Enthusiasm, which 24 years later has its final season. CSI, which I think is still going. Gilmore Girls, that was gone a while ago. Malcolm in the Middle, and Survivor. Cool.
Wow. And Survivor's still going. It's like there's a lot of TV shows.
Yeah.
And I'm sure CSI is still around in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Poor Frankie Muniz. If you're on Twitter and you're sad, just follow Frankie Muniz, who's like a sad dad right now on Twitter, and he just complains about like, oh, my kids ate all my peanut butter. And you're like, oh, okay. So
I like this version of Frankie Muniz.
yeah, it makes you feel better a little bit about your life, but I'm like, poor sad dad Muniz.
Yeah.
Poor little guy.
Yeah.
Top cartoons on this time, or at least it started in 2000, were Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Between the Lions, Dora the Explorer, Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, and Jackie Chan Adventures.
Wicked. I was definitely watching some Jackie Chan Adventures.
Yeah, that great Chinese legendary martial artist, Jackie Chan. Good guy.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Great TV, great cartoon.
Ah, awesome, great. And then top movies released, because this might help kind of spark where you were at a little bit more. I always find that movie like they're kind of more litmus points in my memory, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember going to see that movie, or I remember like those commercials or those people talking about it. So movies are a great way reference yourself. So released this week was But I'm a Cheerleader, The Kid, and Scary Movie. Still in theaters, we could see Perfect Storm, The Patriot, Chicken Run, Shaft, and Gone in 60 Seconds. And if you waited a week or two, you could see X, Pokemon 2000, and What Lies Beneath.
Wow, interesting. This is strange. I have definitely first memories of this time then, for sure.
Yeah, because I feel like I had a friend that came over and told me Scary Movie, oh, it's like the funniest movie. I'm 13 or 11 or something like that, maybe you're 10. And going and watching Scary Movie with our mom was a horrific experience. And you guys ended up sneaking into Perfect Storm, watching the end of that instead.
Yes. Well, all of it. Oh, okay. Like just started.
Oh, really? What the hell did I do?
Yeah.
Because I definitely watched. So I just waited outside for 45 minutes, probably.
I think you got to just play in the arcade because there was the arcade there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Going to movies with children is a different experience than when you're just an adult.
100%. Especially when you're like, this movie is inappropriate. What do I do?
Yeah. And then other than that, like X-Men, I would have swore we saw X-Men in theaters, but maybe we didn't.
Yeah, maybe we. But I was like Pokemon 2000. Did we not get Pokemon cards from watching that movie?
No, that was Pokemon, the first movie.
I know, but I feel like we got somehow in my mind. I feel like we got Could be wrong.
I don't know. You'd have to see what card it was. I know we have a Mew. Like I have a Mew from it, but I don't know if I have a card from another one. So I was like, probably like, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'll just watch more Nicolas Cage movies. And then top video games released July, or I guess, probably in July of 2000. We saw Dark Reign 2, Guilty Gear X, Thread of Fates. That might be two different Guilty Gear X, Threads of Fate. If you bought a game last month or next month, you would get Chrono Cross, Dragon Quest VII, Mario Tennis, WWF Royal Rumble, and Legend of Dragoon.
Oh, okay.
Wait, was Legend of Dragoon next month or last month? Because I was going to say this might be the last great RPG on the PlayStation 1, unless you look at Chrono Cross. Or
Yeah, unless you
Dragon
count
Quest VII,
Chrono Cross.
or Legend of Dragoon.
I'm sure there's another one, like another Suikoden might have squeezed in there in the very last minute, like a Suikoden 8 or something.
All right.
But yeah, no, who doesn't love some Legend of Dragoon, another game that we should probably do a retrospective on at some point. Hopefully it gets remastered one day, but some of the fans are doing some good work out there. There's actually a pretty big and little lively, bigger than expected Legend of Dragoon community out there doing some work.
Okay.
And just to follow up on that Pokemon 2000 thing, so the Pokemon, the Mew, Ancient Mew, Mick,
Yep.
that's the Pokemon 2000
Shit.
promo card.
Right.
Yeah, the Pokemon movie one was Electabuzz, Mewtwo, Pikachu, that black background Pikachu,
Yeah.
and a Dragonite.
Huh. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So you have the Pokemon 2000 promo card for sure, and probably the Pokemon.
Cool. Sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, there you go. So apparently I saw Pokemon 2000. With that, though, we're not going to talk about anything else about this game. We know what the pop cultural landscape looks like. If you were alive back in the day, right, back in the 2000s, you were a person. If you're under the age of 24, you were born after this time. So this is what the old days used to look like. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. The pre-millennium.
Should, like, part of the show's premise for the last, like, whatever, 8 years... Oh, we probably missed our anniversary. We definitely missed our anniversary.
We definitely did.
Yeah.
It came up my calendar after we recorded one day, and I was like, well, that would have been helpful to know like 3 hours ago.
Did we, like, end X-Men? Was X-Men, like, our big, like, season 8 or whatever, season 7 finale?
I think so.
What a cool fitting end that we just didn't mention, eh?
Yep, very much so. Very fitting. Very a lot of work built up to it that kind of like would have worked in our anniversary style, but just
I have a
swinging them.
I have a couple of friends who have birthdays around this time, and I never remember. Like end of May, June, it doesn't really exist in my mind. It's just like a weird. Must be like going to school. You're like, you know what? June is just kind of a write-off. Finals, I basically passed the class anyways. I don't care.
Yeah, that's when you start busting out the calculator, seeing how much percentage on the final you need to pass the class.
Should the premise have been like, what is the best movie to pair with playing this game or something? Could that have been a premise? No, let's not start now. Let's not start anything competent. Now that we've proven we're incompetent, let's get into this game proper, shall we? So disc 1 is what we're looking at today. And we start out with the story. We see flashes of a small vessel being tossed about in a violent storm. This is revealed to be a dream of a sleeping princess. We are introduced to a noble knight, a wide-eyed black mage exploring the city street, and an airship approaching the city. So that leads us to our level notes. Alexandria. So aboard the airship, we meet our hero Zidane and his actor troupe Tantalus. Here we learn that Tantalus has been tasked at escaping the princess, kidnapping the princess from the castle. We also meet a noble knight named Steiner who tries to maintain order in the bustling castle. Finally, we meet a young black mage who is looking to attend a play at the castle, only to find out that his ticket is fake and needs to help out a rat boy sneak into the...
Yeah. Well, we're not invading any Mako reactors. So it's not like jump into it. We're kind of a slower build.
We're not going to school and, fighting Ifrit in the cave.
Yep.
We're just talking about, like, good games, like intros. You have to include everything.
Yes. Well, I would have went with being tacked in a high ship or Highwind, whatever that airship is at the beginning of Final Fantasy IV.
Sure.
But yeah, no, definitely a slower build. I like how it's a little bit more... a lot more about the story. We're not rushing into action and needing to do silly things. Like there's a battle just to kind of get it out of the way, but then we're in for some world building and some introductions to like a variety of our cast. So I'm digging it.
It's kind of just, like Tyson said, a good introduction to this fantasy world, right? We're seeing a lot of the hardware being pushed. The pre-rendered backgrounds and graphics are out there, right? Like, they look pretty good for CGI content. We don't have any voice acting, which obviously probably would have exceeded the scope of what the PlayStation 1 could have provided. When we get to them, and we'll look at that. But everyone looks beautiful. The sprites actually look like they do in the cutscenes, right? So they can kind of integrate those things a little bit more, as opposed to like the vast difference from Final Fantasy VII and even Final Fantasy VIII. Like, Final Fantasy VIII kind of looked good overall, but I don't think that they had the amount of FMVs. So those are FMVs, full motion videos. So when I call them FMVs in the future, that's what I'm referring to. So the FMVs in this are just much greater scope. And yeah, kind of a cute little world, very simple introduction. And like Tyson alluded to, our first fight actually is against, I think, the leader of Tantalus, this big guy. And it's just a fake fight. So it really doesn't mean anything. I think you have like fake swords, but it essentially just kind of gives you a quick tutorial.
Yeah, and I think you can even lose it. It doesn't matter. But I was going to mention that it's like, yeah, just kind of comparing it to 7 and 8. I think the skin tones and the character like coloring and all the different variety, I think that is so much better handled in this, as opposed to everybody just looking like kind of a washed out anime or like just like all one color, like an anime style or whatever. This actually kind of has like feels that character's skin has texture, and I think it does a really good job of kind of taking the game a step forward, even though it's kind of using the same hardware. So it's like, I like it.
Yeah, no, solid. And it does, just look a little bit cleaner, right? So on to Alexandra Castle. So during the performance, Steiner chases after the invaders. Zidane performs on stage, has a sword fight, and enters the castle. He runs into an escaping Princess Garnet and helps her aboard the ship. During the ensuing chaos, both Steiner and Vivi end up on the escaping ship that is hit by a cannon and crashes below the mist into a forest. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Big climactic, like action-packed escape scene. Very cool. Kind of like we were running a little mini heist and put on the play and thought we were capturing the princess, but she was coming along pretty willingly if we were just going to take her out of there. So pretty cool. Kind of subverts a little bit of expectations, and I don't know. Every character kind of has a little bit moments of fun moments. Steiner is the comedic effect. Vivi's just like adorable. Who doesn't love him? And Garnet and Zidane seem to have chemistry kind of right off the bat. So pretty well done.
Yeah, overall, we're meeting, I would say, kind of so you have parties of 4 in this game. These are probably the main 4 characters, right? They're the ones that are going to experience the greatest changes, right? So a little bit of a backstory. We did do a bit of a character draft, so we're doing some character studies. They're broken up. We're getting the worst characters because they're the ones that were picked last, right? So me and Tyson both picked little teams. We'll talk about why we picked them, and we'll kind of run them through. We're getting kind of the weaker characters out of the way, probably in the first 2 shows. So we'll be discussing these characters more in depth. We'll be looking at them a little as their characters develop and grow. As you guys play along or listen to us kind of go through this game, we're going to create relationships which will alter how we want to discuss them in the future, right? So just kind of a heads up on how that's going. So if you're like, hey, you guys are skipping over a lot of Vivi, I want to know more about Vivi. He's coming, don't you worry, little Vivi is coming. From there though, we had 2. Let's give it rebuttal.
No, that's kind of what's gonna soon to come.
There you go.
But yeah, we'll touch on, if big things happen, we'll touch on it.
Certainly. And there's 5 more points after this because this first disc is so short. They must have had so many cutscenes going on in the background to fill kind of the data in this one. So we head to the evil forest. After crashing, the group recovers but learns that Vivi and Garnet are lost somewhere in the forest. Zidane and Steiner investigate and find that the pair are captured by an evil. After a boss fight, a series of insects attack our party, causing them to flee and escape the forest before being turned into stone. This is our first boss, the Plant Brain. You have to attack the body while avoiding the cage where Vivi is being held.
Yeah. Pretty cool little forest. I always dig the vibes of this. Whenever I look forward to this moment whenever I replay this game. I love just running around the forest, beating up on some of the insects and plants or whatever, and just like leveling up, just doing my little power grindy thing. Because this is kind of like first, I wouldn't say dungeon, but kind of like mini area.
That's your
like,
first dungeon, sure.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. The boss is very straightforward. I feel like we might have failed a few times to being dumb kids, but as soon as you realize, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is one of those bosses that when it does a certain thing, you just don't attack.
Oh, the arrow shows where I'm hitting. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those like, oh, okay, just learn a new button and your life's much easier. Okay, awesome. From there, though, we to the ice caverns. We exit the forest into a mist-covered valley and must escape to an ice cave. This is a short dungeon, has one linear path, and near the end, our party falls asleep during a snowstorm. Zidane awakens and must fight our second boss of the game, Black Waltz. He's a larger, seems more aggressive black mage, looks similar to Vivi, and Zidane must fight this larger but more dangerous black mage. Good job, notes.
Yes. This is, just kind of moving the plot along, but seems to, I think, do a really good job. I believe there was maybe a cutscene at some point where it kind of shows, or maybe it's not a cutscene. It's just, I think, cuts to the queen sending out, I think, does she send out these black waltzes against us? If I remember correctly.
I don't know if we get any allusions to that or where they're coming from up to this point, right? I think maybe they're mentioned that... no, because it's not applied to the next city, right? Where that starts, where they start mentioning the queen like that. I think. I could be wrong, but I don't know if we know that the queen has done anything heinous yet, and that's why we're escaping. So I think still the reason that Garnet's escaping, trying to get to see her Uncle Sid in Lindblom, hasn't been quite revealed. So, and if there is a more subtle, man, I played this game like two. If I didn't write the notes, I don't know if I could tell you much of what happens.
Yeah, and I didn't write any notes, so
this is like we're getting through the stories.
apologies.
We're getting through the story, right? When we talk about the characters, we'll definitely discuss and flesh out the characters a little bit more, and we'll talk about like greater theories. Like I'll come back and I'll have more maybe a concrete description, maybe starting next show type thing, right? So again, this one. If something like that happened and someone's at home, you're like, you passed. Yeah, no, I kind of forgot. So I apologize if I'm missing some type of new. From there, though, we head to the village of... Actually, sorry, Ice Cave. I like it. It's kind of I don't know. Ice themes are kind of cool, neat. They always seem like they're like late game stuff. I always think a Pokemon, right? You always get like an Ice Cave later. And so when you get it early on, okay, cool. There's like some fun mammoths you can fight. It's pleasant. It's pleasant for some reason. White and it looks kind of nice.
Yeah, I could spend a lot of time in just eating this up because it's enjoyable. So
awesome. From there, though, we get to the top of the platform. We get to the village of Dali. So following the Black Waltz fight, the party awakens and escapes the cave to the upper plateau. There, they find a seemingly harmless village of Dali. During their visit, Vivi is abducted, leaving Zidane to infiltrate a secret black mage factory to rescue his friend. The gang battles another Black Waltz before escaping on an airship. And here we fight Black Waltz 2.
Yes. Very creepy little village. Everybody seems to be like, oh, let's hang out and relax here. And they're like, bah, I wouldn't stay in this bad vibes all around. So, yeah, interesting. And it's kind of, you don't really expect that. Usually villages are quite a safe place in Final Fantasy games. So again, trying to subvert that expectations of like, oh, hey, you go into a seemingly nice village. Everybody going to stay at it in. You're first in as a team. And it's like, yeah, well.
Yeah, they do, and they do allude to some mist, right? So the valley floor is covered by this mist, where monsters. It creates monsters. Monsters are drawn to it. Monsters come from the mist. So being above the plateaus, you're safe. And they do find that somehow this mist is being blown into the ice cave, and potentially from the city, or the city is actually pumping out some of this mist, right? So we're getting some allusions to this grander, overarching plot, right? And it's just kind of that first kind of peek behind the curtain that not everything is as it seems, right? And there is some type of, like Tyson alluded to, heinous activities going on, right? And that's kind of a fun little more interesting. Again, some character talk. I think Garnet at this point, or Dagger, if that's what she's calling herself, they're like, oh, I don't know about this Zidane. And Zidane's like, I like this girl. She's cute. And he definitely might grab her ass as they're getting on the airship.
Potentially. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think as he's going on, she's climbing up. He's like, here, go first. And then he like reaches up and he's like, ooh, squishy. And she's like, what did you, he's like, you fuck or something like that. But it's like very quick dialogue before the scene changes. And I was like, I saw that.
Oh,
I saw what was going on there. All right, cool.
Nice.
From here, though, we head to Lindblom. So during the air travel, another Black Waltz attacks. Yeah, sure. Okay. Even after the boss fight, he continues the chase and damages the airship and the south gate of Lindblom. The airship does make it to the castle, where we find out that the regent, it's kind of like King Sid, actually arranged the kidnapping, or the princess's kidnapping, since there is something up with Queen Bram. The party explores the city. Zidane hits on Garnet and takes place in a beast hunt with a dragoon knight, Freya. After the contest, the Princess Garnet and Steiner escape in secret and try to return to Alexandria. This leaves Zidane, Freya, and Vivi to lend aid to the kingdom of Bermesia.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a fight. We get to the fight is what it is. Once we're off the airship, we're in the castle. Neat, cool. It's nice to see that, Princess knew that there was something up with the Queen. It seems like Sid knew that there was something up with the Queen. So something's just going not quite right, that escape.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, I love Len Bloom, kind of a Final Fantasy staple, if I'm not mistaken, or at least the name is. Yeah, and it's a cool little airship city, a little more advanced. It's fun. I love the little world that they're building, and Lynn Bloom has all these different levels, and everything's all connected with these little air trolleys. So it's cool. And then we get the Beast Hunt kind of mini game where you, Freya,
this might
and
be, in fact,
Phoebe
sorry, on the Limbom point, this might be the biggest city because there are 4 different districts that we can visit, plus the castle, right? So 5 different kind of sub areas make up kind of this greater world, which is probably the biggest. Because I know there's another city that we go to in Disc 2. And Alexandria, I don't think is even with like the castle, if you kind of think it's one. So yeah, like Tyson mentioned, biggest city, a little bit more technologically advanced. It's kind of fun. And then you were mentioning or getting to the...
Yeah. I was just going to say it's a competition of Freya, Vivi, and Zidane all enter. And you get kind of different rewards for whoever wins.
Did you win?
I won.
Yeah, okay.
And I only won the money because I'm stupid and I should just let Freya win. But I was running around just one shot and everything and having too much fun time.
What happens if Freya wins?
She gets I think she gets an accessory. Vivi gets something that's really decent, but it's not likely that
he'd win.
He'd win. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
Or I think if he gets the last hit on the big beast at the end, he'll win. But that's, again, you have to not hit it, and Freya has to not hit it. So you kind of have to time it out. I'm not doing that math, so
sure. Okay.
I'm just smacking things and they die.
That's where I was at. I took my money and I was like, okay, cool, awesome. From here, we do learn about synthesizing weapons, right? So you can take an older weapon with an accessory or 2 older weapons and kind of make a new version of it, right? And each weapon in this game is the same with armor, right? Whether it's like a head, a body piece, an accessory, and a weapon or something like that. Each of them have like abilities. So you equip a sword, you'll get an ability for your character. You can use ability points to activate it. That might be something from increased damage to beasts or insects or an auto potion. So every time you take damage, your character restores themselves with a potion, right? So taking out some of the support activities. If you keep it on your character long enough, they acquire AP points, so experience or ability points from battles. You get enough ability points, you can permanently learn that skill if you wanted to keep it on your character. So there's like a little bit, that's kind of how the grinding works game. So you have to do so many battles to get the AP points to fill up your characters. And oh baby, I spent most of my game or most of my time just synthesizing weapons so I could learn that one skill, because like I need autofocus on, I don't know what it does, but oh man, I need that ability for Vivi. Can't do anything without it. So you get a new character and they have nothing and they have like 20 weapons, and I'm like, all right, just running outside in this desert collecting AP points so my little guy can know everything because I have to be a completionist for some bizarre reason. I'm not going to complete the game, but that's how I'm going to play. So that is kind of the materia system of this game, kind of the skill point, the extra character growth, the role playing, as it were. This game kind of works through weapons, and Lindblom's a great first place to start synthesizing and growing weapons, and gives you an idea of things you should do, right? You might look at some items and be like, oh, if I keep this accessory, I shouldn't sell it. Maybe I should go Did you do a lot of synthesizing?
I did a bunch of synthesizing because there's actually a little money cheat you can grind out quick. I think it's in the village of Dahlia. You can buy some tunics.
Okay.
And then in Lindblom, forget what the heck it is off the top of my head because I haven't played this in a month. But there's like another item, a cloth or something, and you can essentially synthesize them for a better item, and you can sell that for 1,000. And each of the sum of the two parts are less than that. So essentially, if you can max out 99 of both those, you can just synthesize a bunch of stuff and get a ton of money off the bat. So it's a little like cheese to get cash if you don't feel like, but running around and smacking things is a good way of getting cash too. So
yeah, for sure, certainly. Cool. So with that, kind of all the key points in Lindblom, right? Party split up a little bit. As in any good story, you gotta break up the fellowship at some point, right? So we head to Gizmaluk's grotto. Nailed it. After taking the Serpent Gate, the party finds themselves in another misty valley. Here, they can visit a grotto and meet a blue mage / chef named Queen. They join you to explore the world looking for tasty food. We find a bunch of Burmecia soldiers, they're like kind of rat people, being attacked by black mages, and must fight through a dungeon that requires bells as keys. At the end of the dungeon, we must fight the once peaceful guard, Gizmaluk. Cool.
Yeah, that sounds about like accurate. I don't know. Yeah, kind of a little lull point. I feel like this is always kind of like that. I don't know. I feel like this is always kind of just extra and shoved in here as like a random, like, here, meet quinoa or whatever the hell the name is. Quina. Yeah, she's her being just shoved in here just so random. And there's like a little catch a frog and feed her frogs.
I think
it's like
Queen is actually non-binary, so they're a they.
Oh, they. They are just they're one of my least favorite characters, but that probably shows up on our rankings. So
yes.
I don't know. I kind of do what I got to do here and get out of here. Move on to Burmecia because that seems like it's important, and we shouldn't be messing around in some random swamp.
Yeah, the swamp is, well, we'll talk about it. It comes back up, and it's like more important in the future. And finding the frogs, I don't know, like has a charm, and I think Queen has an interesting, the blue mage aspect of their character is interesting, right? Because they can get enemy abilities, right? And I think you could get recipe, thing like that. But yeah, again, one of the weaker characters. They just kind of.
Yeah. The
game developers wanted you to always have parties of 4 for the most part, right? Or 2 or something like that, or 3. So Queen is kind of just the party member that comes and goes. They're required. Oh, you only have 3 people because someone left. Oh, Queen walks on the screen. She's like, hello. And then as soon as you need them gone, they just jump into like a river and like go away. And you're like, bye. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I guess it's not Queena's fault. I'm never really partial to like that, the blue mage play type. So I always just kind of, I always just kind of skip it. Whenever it's like, here, do the thing to learn the skill. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to do this.
And, I mean, their design is a little bit interesting too. We can get into it because I think that's one of the characters actually we're talking about today. So they're interesting in a sense that all the rest of the characters from this game kind of represent the party members of the original Final Fantasy, right? So if you go back to the very first Final Fantasy and picked a thief, oh boy, dressed in a blue little vest, blonde hair, looks a lot like Zidane. How about a mate or a white mage? Person with black hair and a little white cloak. I think Garnet wears that when she's escaping the castle. Black mages, right? Right there in Vivi, looks pretty much the same. Knight. There's Steiner, right? Dragoon. Okay, cool, awesome. But the blue mage never looked like a weird frog guy.
No.
Yeah.
No. And this part is actually did make me laugh at one point because I think Vivi's like makes a pretty inappropriate little comment where it's like, hey, you look like one of your race that works in the castle. Do you know them? It's like, no. Why would you assume that? Like, oh, sorry. It's like,
But I think it is earlier on in the game. Maybe we'll get it. We'll get to it. They might actually be in one of the. Anyways, yeah, we'll get to it. So
could be. It could just be them messing with Vivi. But I noted that and I was like, oh, poor Vivi.
Yeah, poor little naive. He's got a lot of character growth, that little guy needs. From there, though, we head to, like Tyson mentioned, Burmecia. So finally, our party arrives at the forever reigning kingdom of Burmecia, which also apparently the rain takes care of the mist, so that's how they're able to live kind of underground or like under the plateau. So they're like looked down upon, but they're obviously very warful, enduring people, right? They just but they're, again,
dragoons. Who doesn't love them?
Yeah, we kind of look down at them because they look below us. And racism, bad. Okay, noted. We find the city in ruin, and many, if not all the guards and people have been slaughtered. At the end, after we find Queen Brahm, her general Beatrix, and a mysterious man with a tail, we are confronted when General Beatrix steps in and destroys our party with a handful of special sword techniques. And that is the end of Disc 1.
Yeah. Kind of think we're going to be a big triumph and try to get redemption, save, and stop the day, but it's Disc 1, guys. We know we got to fail. But interesting shoving a must-lose battle in here.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird dark note to end this kind of disc. I mean, compelling, makes you want to go to the next one. The mystery is just starting to be pulled back, right? We're seeing Queen Brahm is involved in these attacks. She has been a bit more unruly. She is planning to attack, say, the Lindbombs of the world. Is getting a little bit more paranoid. And there's this Miss Man that makes an introduction. I'm like, oh, interesting. Cool.
Yes. Wonder what they have to play into this whole narrative.
Yeah, but that ends that. Quick, very, very fast. I'll be honest with you. My instant takeaway of Disc 1, finishing it years later. I think I've almost beat this game before. I got to the final the end guy, ran out of like equipment or items and just couldn't get them. So excited to finally beat this game. But I have played it before, maybe a couple times, right? So it's quick, right? Like we're in the castle, the airship crashes, we get up to the castle, our party breaks off, and we're fighting Beatrix, right? Like it moves so quick, it's so fast. The Disc 2 is a little bit longer. I don't know about the length of the rest of them, but definitely noticing that the increased graphics, the FMVs that they've included in this adventure are obviously taking a lot of the discs, right? And it was probably time for that generational upgrade to the PS2 or GameCube or Xbox, right? But we're just at the end of that final. Or was the PlayStation 1 64 bits?
Sure.
Okay.
Competed with the N64.
Yeah, they were on the same.
That's the same, and then maybe they just stopped counting in bits at that point. I don't know.
It did have a 64-bit processor.
There you go. Yeah, so pretty cool. I like this so far. Super heavy on the story. I guess the reason why it's kind of flying by so quickly for us, we didn't really touch on it, but there is another card game, as in most Final Fantasy games. So if you are playing that card game, I can't even think of the name of it off the top of my head.
Triple Triad.
Triple Triad. This is where I got introduced to it.
Okay.
And I remember playing it a lot as a kid. I haven't really played much of it in this game. So I've been collecting a few of the cards, but I'm like, I haven't played anything. I'm not grinding anything.
I don't think they're crucial for character development, as opposed to that's I think the case for Final Fantasy VIII. Like you kind of had to play the card game. It was a bit more focused if you wanted to have like the better items or better this, right? So I think this game kind of takes that away. But yeah, I think there's an actual tournament you have to play. So there's like a story beat coming out of one of the discs where we have to play Triple Triad. Other than that, you don't really play it. One story from when I first played this game was there was a night where I was playing Triple Triad and I opened and took the disc out, but the game kept playing because the ROM was still loaded, right? The internal memory of the PlayStation just kind of kept it going. So I kept playing. Man, I played that game for like an hour. I had so many incredible cards. And then when I put the disc back in, it just like wrecked it. It started loading. I wasn't able to load back to the previous point because it already had thought the disc was gone. It forgot what point it was at. So I lost like hours and like amazing cards. And I had these like big ass wins. And that was my experience with Triple Triad. It was just that like.
Yeah. And it was just for the sake of pulling out the disc.
Now, with that being said, it might have been on a PS2 that I've done this, which would make more sense if it was a bit more of a powerful machine. And obviously the PS2 probably had actually more RAM and could sit there with a bit more memory. So yeah, it could definitely easily load this like card game on that.
I feel like it was a PlayStation 1 because I feel like it was like one time randomly you stood up just like, oh, done playing this game. So you stood up, ejected the disc.
And it kept going.
Put it away. And you like looked at the screen and you were like, wait a minute. Closed it and you sat down and kept playing it. So I feel like it might have been that sequence of events, and I feel like we were all screwing around and being like, look how cool this is.
Yeah.
We had to show all the kids in the schoolyard the next day, like, you hear about this thing you can do with Final Fantasy 9, you just take out the disc, man. They're like, that's going to break your thing. You're like, no, it's fine. It works. It doesn't break it.
You could, and then you can't save any of the progress you make. Well, that sounds awesome. Like, yeah, it makes sense. I'm suing everyone else because I made a mistake. Yeah, it sounds about on par for my life.
Yeah. Cool. So, other than that, fun time. Good story-driven disc. Love the pacing. I got no problem with it. Lots of FMVs to keep us interested.
Absolutely. And there's lots of dialogue and there's subtle moments between characters and they grow and they kind of have back and forth. See the relationships appear on screen, right? Like we may not be doing justice that some of the storytelling that they're doing. But this is Final Fantasy at its high fantasy and Final Fantasy at its finest, right? So the last time we ever see the knights and armor and the dragoons, it never really comes back to this point, right? So this is the end of an era, and hopefully we're doing that more justice kind of going forward. This was just kind of that initial kicking off point. We had to do our introduction and Wayback Machine game, right? So and then as we're going, I think some of the opening segments, sequences will kind of turn more into sessions of those points. So if it does feel like we're kind of looking over the story, if we dive in depth into the story right now, guys, what are we doing in the next 3 shows, right? So a little bit later today, we'll end with the final, kind of like I said, worst characters. They're technically not. They're like 8 and 6.
Yeah. Well, one of them's fine. I just think the other of them, I have a play style
it doesn't
avoidance
work.
too.
Yeah, and maybe we'll find like what's the best way to build up a Quina. We're talking about
spoilers.
So we'll end with our cultural significance. We're going to be looking at character studies. So we have four shows, 8 characters. We'll look at 2 characters per episodes, and we're going to do reverse draft order. So somewhere I have a draft written down of who picked what. I don't know where it is.
I think
maybe it's
the
on a
first
phone.
character is my pick, and I think you got Queen.
Yeah. So the last pick of the draft was Queen. So we'll talk about them second, and then I think you technically picked this character like 6th, but I flipped her with the person you picked 7th because it would be weird to introduce a character we haven't met in the story. So starting off with the 6th place character, so Tyson's 3rd pick, with Freya. So the backstory of Freya is Freya became a dragon knight at age 16, and a year later left Burmecia in search of Sir Fratley, her lover, or her love interest. She is Zidane's old friend she met during her quest to find her lost love. The anatomy of a character. So Freya wears a red hat with a decorative metallic wing, which combined with her white hair obscures much of her face and her green eyes. She wears a long red coat with a split up the back, buckles on the upper arms and roping around the sleeves. A large, I don't know what that word is, escutcheon, bearing the Burmesian coat of arms on her torso and a pale cravat, long length orange trousers. Oh my god, they literally just like tell you what it is. So she's kind of like a rat person in a red coat. Cool.
Yep, and she got like Where in World is Carmen Sandiego thing where she like only see half of her face.
Yeah, perfect. Carmen Sandiego.
Yeah,
you got it.
Yeah.
In fact, so much so I was calling her a red mage earlier in the notes, and I caught myself and didn't say it. So she's a dragoon knight, but she kind of looks like the red mage, right? So if you think back to early Final Fantasy, they have kind of like the pointy red hat, coat that goes up high. That's really kind of essentially, I think, where they got the interest or the sprite design of kind of what framed Freya for us. And during trance, Freya's clothing is replaced with full plate metal armor, complete with a pair of gauntlets and greaves that cover her head and legs respectively. Her hat is replaced with a knight's helmet that covers all but the back of her.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's kind of how she looks and everything. Do you want to go through the last little bit of notes or talk about her now?
Yeah, talk about her. Then we'll do some trivia.
Yeah, I like her. I think she's a fun character. I've always dig Dragoon. I mean, my boy Kane from Final Fantasy IV's Dragoon. I like me some Legend of Dragoon. I know that's not related, but we were talking about it earlier and it was on my mind. So, yeah, no, I like Freya. I like when she gets introduced to the story. You can tell that her and Zidane have like this history and they're kind of like good friends. Yeah, and then she finds out that her like people are in trouble and you run off to go help her. And that's kind of all we really know too much about her. Does she find her lost love?
He does appear in the next disc.
Okay.
Yeah, but then I think he goes away and they literally kind of falls a little flat on that one. Yeah, but for the most part, she's kind of an interesting character, mysterious, dark. Like I said, Dragon Knight, you mentioned Kane. I was instantly thinking like Sid from Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Right, so they do kind of stand out. They're a little bit cool. Yeah, they just have the jump technique, right? It's kind of like the two-turn attack. But it's just kind of that weird staple from those old Final Fantasy games and played well, right? She has kind of obviously a little bit more of an interesting backstory that comes to a screeching halt pretty quickly. But great. Love seeing Freya on the team. And yeah, she's just unfortunately not one of the main characters, right? She's like just outside that. Probably the next step out of the top 4.
Yeah, I think brings a lot of utility to the team. I think she's awesome. I always like kind of having her in my lineup, but I'm partial to Dragoons. So
awesome. And finally, some trivia on Freya before we move on to our final character. So the English script switches at various points between correctly saying Freya left Burmecia 3 years ago and saying it was 5 years ago. Oh, English. Freya is notably the only female in the Burmecia military. Before the players can name Freya, Zidane jokingly incorrects her name as Helga, Christine, and Rachel. The player can name her Helga or Rachel, but is not Christine due to the 7-character limit, contradicting previous interaction.
Somebody hope better got fired for this blunder.
Oh my gosh. Imagine hitting the same note of a ribcage xylophone and making 2 distinct notes. Idiots.
Yeah, or like trying to get the past the wizard in Dungeon 5 without the key. I don't know. Yeah. I forget what the other guy says. Yeah. You know what? Maybe the 3 to 5 years thing is different calendars. Maybe people have different calendars. Some people go by the, typical 12 months of the year, and some people rock a random 16 or something. Sure.
You're right. That does seem more logical than them just making an error. Good point. Finally, yes.
I was just gonna say I'll try to save this. In Final Fantasy VIII, we'd rip it apart for these things. But Final Fantasy IX, it's like, you see, they're just different calendars.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think there are some things like we mentioned, like Freya's story just kind of runs out. Oh, okay, cool. Why? There was probably some development time. This game is very ambitious. It's very big. There's lots going on. There was lots of team. We'll look at the development details. We can maybe discuss things a little bit better there, but just keep that back of our mind. Story kind of dies down on Freya, and things are missed here and there, but it was a big, ambitious game that was at the end of its life cycle, so the budget probably wasn't quite there too, right? With them also working on Final Fantasy X at the same time, I imagine. Probably pretty close. Probably. They were like, let's get rid of this one because we've got a bigger thing coming on. So final character we'll talk about today. This one hopefully is a little bit faster. Backstory. Quina was hired as the head cook in Alexandria Castle the month before Princess Garnet's 16th birthday. On the day of the festival, they oversee the chef's every move and taste most of the dishes in preparation for the birthday party. 2 days later, Quina travels towards Queen Marsh, and a couple of days later, participates in the Festival of the Hunt in Lindbaum under the name Strange Gourmand. However, it is not until the party visits Queen's March that they have a chance to make their first properly. Huh, cool.
Well, I've learned all sorts of new stuff.
There you go.
See, Vivi wasn't being inappropriate.
Yeah,
they were just messing with it.
I think that's the joke is you do technically like meet Queen before that, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Pretty cool. I didn't realize that they compete in the Festival of Hunt.
You know what? I definitely kind of recall seeing this Strange Gourmand somewhere before and just being like, I hate this person. I don't know who they are. So Yeah. Okay. Cool. Now that I'm like, oh, I see.
I wonder if in the game somehow you could, if I wonder if it was possible, but if all three of you failed and
Oh,
somehow
strange.
Queena won the actual thing, and then she would come in with like a better weapon. One thing I was actually going to mention about her before, because I don't think that there's another spot in it. Her time to learn abilities is ridiculous. Everybody else is
Oh,
like,
yeah.
here's 16 or 8 or 40 or whatever.
Yeah. Queena's first weapon.
Hers is like 500.
Yeah, 200 for high tide. And I'm like, what's that do? I don't know. Like, well, I better get it.
Nah, but I gotta learn it.
Yeah. Now, luckily, I think by even the end of disc 2, like, I only get to their second weapon, right? So I've only ever had their second in my inventory. So it's not like I'm having, like, on Fork 12. I'm like, I'm still just, like, out here on the plateaus, just trying to grind up Queena's weapon rates. There isn't a lot of weapons for them. So that's, like, kind of the one perk. But yeah, definitely a lot harder. And because they're intimately on your team, very challenging to kind of get a master high level Queena character.
Yeah, and to have to learn that whole I don't like that gameplay of having to like, ooh, don't hit them so hard, and then you can capture them like a Pokemon. It's like, don't shove Pokemon mechanics into my Final Fantasy games. Thank you very much. I do not want to be capturing things.
So anatomy of a character. I'm definitely going to cut these down. I might have just copy and pasted them and forgot to do the editing. All right, so let's see. On the time, Queena is a genderless Qui, a tribe known for their strange eating habits, long tongues, and poor language skills. Queena wears a chef hat, and in their trance, their facial area resembles Vivi, whose long black tongue notwithstanding, having disappeared into a void with only a bright white eyes to hint that they have and their clothes are replaced by an obese armor set complete with an elegant or elaborate neck armor and a chef's hat.
Yeah, definitely one of the cooler, I like the Kui tribes. I think that they're very neat. The whole Pokemon mechanic, as well as kind of having the long tongue hanging out like a Lickitung.
Yeah, they were definitely going for a vibe with this character. I don't know if there's like any inspiration or anything like that, right? But yeah, definitely a little bit different. Like I said, I don't think they allude to any of the classic sprite designs, and they're probably the only character in this one that has that kind of unique touch, right? And maybe going back and looking at some other material in the future, I might be like, oh, they look just like this character from Final Fantasy or something. Sure, great. As far as I know, this game was mostly represented by like the first game, right? It's a lot of the sprite design, but maybe it's all early Final Fantasies they kind of pulled from. But also just creating a fantasy world and putting a new race of chef frogs. Neat, cool.
Who like to eat frogs. Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
Awesome, cool, sweet. And then trivia on Queena before we're done today. Queena only appears in one FMV at the end of the game, and Queena is the oldest character, well, playable character, in Final Fantasy IX.
How old is she?
I don't know how old they are. Does it matter?
Well, you said how they're the oldest. Now I need to know.
Age. 89.
89.
Okay.
Yeah. That seems... They are very spry. I am impressed.
Yeah.
And to have that appetite, things I can only dream of.
Yeah, it must like live for a long time.
Especially since like there's an elder in the tribe, so obviously they live
for a while.
Pretty long old lives. Who would have figured eating frogs extends life?
I don't know. The French would be like, I know this the whole time. Bonsoir.
Yeah.
Okay,
Who else? Oh, and the I was gonna say like in the deep south with some fried frog legs
alligator
or
Florida man. That's where Florida man comes from. If you live long enough, you can become a gross hillbilly. Wears a wife beater.
Or maybe that's the difference. Is like maybe there's bad frogs that you shouldn't eat.
I could see that.
And then there's good frogs that you can eat,
Yeah,
like
Peter,
the French.
Peter Griffin once sang a song about frogs, not teens. Yeah.
No, I think you're just talking about licking them.
Oh, sure.
But I think you can't eat food without licking it in some sense. So this is like is it a sandwich debate? So
everything's a sandwich. That's the debate. All right. So with that wraps up our first kind of look, our intro, brief synopsis, hour-long take on the first disc of Final Fantasy IX. So we'll be back over the next couple months. I think the last show is kind of scheduled for like end of September. So if you're getting into this one, we should give you guys lots of time. Maybe listen to us, play along, maybe at the start of the second game. And that's probably like a pretty good pace. Gives you 2-ish months to kind of beat the game, listen along with us, right? So for this one, it's just an intro. It's just a primer. This is, you can go to your digital store and download this game and get it ready on your console to kind of follow along over the rest of the summer. And yeah, did we miss anything?
No, I think we did a pretty good job. I'm sure the little things here and there.
But again, this is the easiest part, guys. Part 1 of a 4-part retrospective. It doesn't matter. I could literally say nothing of consequence, and the next episode, I could say, hey guys, sorry by the way, and cancel out everything I missed. So it's perfect. No pressure. It's great. It's good times.
Yep. Hopefully you join along. This is a great game. Super easy to play. Like it's available in so many ways, and with all the upgrades and modern creature comforts, it flies by. That's like we're probably a little rusty because we expected an RPG to take a lot longer, and then Disc 1 was over, and we're like, well, we finished that weeks in advance. So I'm sure things will be a little bit more fresher next go around.
Again, it's just the more nuanced parts of the discussions and characters and growth but I think we'll probably do like a bigger segment overall anyways, right? You just need kind of fine or broad brush strokes. If you want the more fine detailed stuff, there's lots of more in-depth kind of retrospect find anywhere on the internet, or play the game for yourself, right? Experience those more nuances of the characters, right? Like, we fall in love and we'll have relationships and care about these characters differently than if you don't play with them or have played with, and we can't really, we could share that a little bit as it comes along, but for the most part, you just kind of are on a linear path, and I don't think there's too much emotional ties to any of the characters.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're watching on YouTube or whatever, drop a comment. Would love to hear your feedback, or what your list of, if you're going to rank all the characters from your favorite to least favorite.
Would Quina be your 8, and would your Freya be your 6?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, or these super low. So we'll see.
Awesome. So with that, yeah, we'll see you guys in like a month's time, because I think we're playing a movie. I don't know why we didn't play the movie first and then get into this, but don't tell us how to do a podcast. So I think all of July we're good. We're back like start of August. So see you guys then with part 2 of Final Fantasy IX. So again, don't rush through this experience. And yeah, we're going to have a really goofy... No, that doesn't. Oh, we should do Goof Troop. We could watch the Goofy movie, play the Goof Troop game. That'd be a good summer double feature too. But we have a double feature coming up for you guys in 2 weeks. So look forward to that one.
Yep. Talk to you guys later. See you guys later. Bye.